Good morning, students. So let's start today's lecture. I would first of all quickly revise what we had done in the previous lecture in 2 minutes. So first of all, let me know if I'm audible. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So let me quickly revise what we did yesterday. We studied what is Hill cipher. First of all, we learned that the Hill cipher is a little different than whatever ciphers we had done so far. It is a polyalphabetic cipher, obviously, because it has multiple characters which are getting replaced again and again. So as you can see, this is the basic summary of that Hill cipher. We came to know that it consists of this particular expression where K1 is nothing but the first element of the key, P1 is nothing but the first element of the plain text, and so on. So we also came to know that the key has to be of a multiple of the plain text. For example, plain text, if the plain text size is 12, and if the key is of size 3 bits or 3 by 3, then we need four such parts of that key to encrypt the plain text. 3 into 4, 12. So what we do is we make use of that key again and again four times with the different constituent elements of that plain text. And ultimately we get the ciphertext. So this is the formula C is equal to P dot K mod 26. Fine. We also saw that the encryption part is really simple. That is the objective of cryptography. We have to keep the encryption as simple as possible, but the decryption part becomes difficult, or it should be difficult, so that even if the even if a genuine person or the genuine authentic user receives that message, he or she needs that key to decrypt that message, or should have some useful information about that particular encryption model to decrypt the message. Just to keep it uh, difficult to decrypt and easy to encrypt, these sort of principles are used, right? We also saw that the key in this particular case is made up of 3 by 3, and every operation that you see over here that you had seen yesterday is all in the domain of 26, that is modulo 26. Whatever multiplications, divisions we are doing, that should be within the bounds of 0 to 25 only. We saw that the plain text was divided into multiples of 3, and each group of 3 elements was subjected to that single key that you saw over here, that is a 3 by 3 key. And at the end we got the encrypted text over here, that is this one. Similarly, the decryption process involves the inverse of the key. We also saw what are the various ways of calculating the inverse. We first of all found out the determinant, then the inverse of that determinant using this method, Chinese remainder theorem, and then we got the adjugate of that matrix K. And using this formula, we found out what is K inverse. Once K inverse is done, we go back to this main formula and replace C by P everywhere. So it becomes P is equal to C, and replace K by K inverse. The rest of the formula remains the same. Kindly do it carefully. I have also given this question in your assignment. Okay, you have time till Monday, solve it properly and complete your answers. So this is all what we did yesterday. We also saw some basics of mathematics, how to find the adjugate, co-minors, etc., etc. So let's start today's lecture, and we are having these two topics left out from substitution ciphers, which are basically Wigner cipher and Vernam cipher. Let me show that. So these are the two topics which are left, and this is what we are going to do today: Wigner cipher and Vernam cipher. So as you can see in this diagram, I'm keeping this diagram again and again for each and every lecture. We have already seen Caesar cipher, which is a monoalphabetic cipher. We have already seen Playfair as well as Hill ciphers, which are polyalphabetic cipher, which involves multiple substitutions at a single time. We saw that in Playfair cipher, there were substitutions of uh, two characters or a pair of characters at a time. In case of Hill cipher, we saw that we have to do it for a particular group of matrices. So it involves multiple characters at the same time in the case of Hill cipher. Now we are going to learn about Wigner cipher and Vernam cipher. So let's start Wigner cipher. Just have a look at this particular definition over here. Again, the page numbers are mentioned over there. You can refer the books. I've already shared the books. Just read the definition once. What exactly is Wigner cipher? Wigner cipher is actually the oldest, according to according to the history of cryptography. Obviously, cryptography was the oldest. After that, Wigner cipher. is considered to be the best known and the simplest polyalphabetic ciphers in Vignes cipher. That is Vignes cipher. Just have a look. What it consists of is, if you are well aware of the Caesar cipher, then the Vignes cipher is just, you can say, an application of that Caesar cipher. How so? Again, Vignes cipher can be solved using two different methods. I'm going to show both of the methods to you. Uh, Based upon the question, how it is asked in the examination, you have to choose the method, right? Answers you will get the same using both the methods, but it depends on the inputs. What sort of inputs are given to you? Depending upon that, you have to choose which method you need to use. Am I clear? So let's start with the method number one. Method number one is like this. First of all, have a look. Vignes cipher basically consists of 26 Caesar ciphers. I'm repeating once again. You have already learned what is a Caesar cipher, and it took a little amount of time for me to explain what exactly Caesar cipher was. So now just imagine that Vignes cipher is made up of 26 such Caesar ciphers. Fine. But don't worry, it is not that difficult to understand. I will try my best to make you understand what exactly Vignes cipher is. But for the time being, in its simplest form, you can say that Vignes cipher is a cipher which is made up of 26 Caesar ciphers. Okay, so just listen what I'm saying. In this scheme, the set of related mono-alphabetic substitution ciphers or substitution rules consist of 26 Caesar ciphers with shifts of 0 through 25. Obviously, in the case of Caesar cipher, also we saw that there could, in case of a general Caesar cipher, we saw that there could be shifts between 0 to 25. Fine, correct? So, using that principle, what we are going to do is, in the case of this cipher, that is Vignes cipher, 26 different Caesar ciphers are allocated for each individual key element. If I'm making any sense, I will just tell you what exactly I'm talking. Just have a look at this definition. Just have a look at this diagram. It is made up of this particular expression, where k is made up of k0, k1, k2 till km minus 1, and p is made up of p0, p1, p2 till pn minus 1, where m should be less than n. So what does it simply mean? Kindly let me know. Yes, kindly let me know. If m is less than n, what does it mean? Have a look at this expression and tell me what exactly does it mean. Number of k is more than number of more or less. Kindly have a look. M stands for the key, number of keys, where N stands for number of plain text. Yeah. So basically, we can say that, yes, B division, kindly respond. We can say that the length of the key should be less than the length of the plain text. Am I clear? Fine. So whatever be the plain text, the key has to be lesser in size as compared to the plain text. Fine. This is the same thing we saw in the case of the previous cipher, Hill cipher also. Plain text can be even a single page, single line, single page, or even a paragraph. Whereas the key is supposed to be smaller than that or lesser than that in size. Fine. So that is what we are going to follow. This is the very first assumption. Next is the ciphertext letters are C0, C1, C2 till Cn minus 1. Obviously, whatever be the plain text length, that is going to be same as the ciphertext length also. If I send a hello message as the plain text, it consists of 5 characters. The ciphertext should also consist of 5 characters only. It should not contain anything more or anything less. Am I clear? Fine. Okay. Next, the formula. This is the formula using which we can derive a ciphertext. Ciphertext is nothing but encryption. This is a function over here. Encryption is a function. It consists of two inputs, K and P, where K is the key, P is the plain text. We pass on the values over here, and this is how it works internally. P0 plus K0 mod 26, comma, P1 plus K1 mod 26, etc. till the last element. Am I clear? So what exactly is happening? Each element of the plain text is added with each element of the key, and the combined mod is taken by 26. Whatever is the result, that will be your C0. and C1 and C2 and so on. Am I clear? Yes, kindly let me know. See the formula first. Each element, each corresponding element of the plain text and the keys will be added, and that has to go through a mod 26 operation. And whatever is the result, that will be your new ciphertext element. If it is P1K1, then the ciphertext will be C1, and so on. Yes. Okay, B division. I'm not getting any answers from you people. I don't know what has happened to you today. Okay. Okay, fine. So this is how in its basic terms, a Vignesh cipher looks like. Now, let me take some examples and it will be much more clear. Okay. In this case, what you can see is now we know that in the case of Caesar cipher, also we do all the operation in terms of numbers, right? Over here, also, you are going to make use of numbers from 0 to 25. So what happens is, I'm again repeating this part in yellow over here. The first letter of the key is added to the first letter of the plain text, mod 26. Similarly, the second letters will be added and so on, right? So what we can do is we can create a general equation for the process you have just now seen. The general equation would look something like this. Just have a look. Based upon this, you can create your algorithms. Based upon this, you can create your programs. C of I is equal to P of I plus K of I mod N. This is very important. Now you only tell me why it is so. C of I is equal to P of I plus K of I mod M mod 26. Come on, tell me the answer. Why? Harsh, this is the answer for your query. Yes, correct. Because the key size is lesser than the plain text size. So what happens is, as we know that I have already written it over here, that m is less than n. So the number of keys obviously would be less than m. No, sorry, less than plain text. So what happens is when the key is exhausted, it is looped back. It is again reused, right? So what happens is if the plain text is of size 10 and the key is of size 3, so what will happen is p of 4. What I'm just giving an example. Suppose uh, length of plain text is equal to 10 and suppose length of the key is equal to 4. Okay. So what happens is suppose I is equal to, if I is equal to 6, then what happens? P of 6 plus K of 6 mod M is 4. It will be 2. So it will be basically P of 6 plus K of 2. The keys will be repeated and the answer that we will get will be C of 6. Am I clear? Yes or no? Fine. So this is how we can reuse the keys because obviously the length of the key is less than the length of the plain text. Fine. So this is a very clever idea. Actually, this was supposed to be a very good cipher at that point of time. After it was broken, obviously it was found that some statistical analysis can be done on this. I will discuss upon that later. But at that point of time, this algorithm was thought to be a very in what you can say interesting sort of a cipher which cannot be broken. Fine. So right now it is clear, I guess. So we can move ahead. So this is a general formula for this Vignesh cipher. Fine. Similarly, the decryption also has a particular formula over here where plain text is replaced by the ciphertext. So P of I will be C of I minus K of I mod M mod 26. The same thing in subtraction. Okay, I guess this is clear now. So now the question arises, what exactly I was talking about 26 Caesar ciphers and all? I can't see 26 Caesar ciphers over here. Can anyone let me know what exactly I was talking about? How is this particular cipher made up of 26 different Caesar ciphers? Any idea? Because what I can see over here is it simply consists of some addition, some subtraction in the form of keys. Now, I would like to get answers from your side. What exactly can you think of those 26 Caesar ciphers that I discussed earlier? Any idea? How come 26 Caesar ciphers are going to be used over here? Correct, Akhil. Some 90% correct what you have written over here. For example, if the first character is shifted by 1, then the second character is shifted by 2 and so on. It is 90% correct. I would just elaborate on that. What happens is, let's take an example first. It will clear the things. Okay. I guess you are now able to see the example. The key is given something like this. Deceptive. Okay, as you can see. I have taken this example from the book only. The key is mentioned as deceptive. The plain text is long. Obviously, the plain text has to be longer than the key. The plain text is we are discovered, save yourself. Now what happens is the key is shorter, so it has to be repeated. In this case, coincidentally, it is a multiple of the plain text. So what happens is we have to repeat it 3 times. In case if it is not a multiple, then we simply need to start again from the first character of the key until the size of both of them matches. Until the plain text and the key size matches. Am I clear? Yes or no? Kindly let me know. This is very important. Fine. So if the plain text and key size is equal, then no issues. Obviously, it has to be less. The key has to be lesser than the plain text uh, according to our assumptions. So we have to make the key size and the plain text size equal so that we can add them together. Right. So for that purpose, if we run out of the key, we again start back from the very first alphabet of the key until we reach the end, until we make them equal in size. Fine. So according to that, the key is given over here, repeated thrice. The plain text is given and the ciphertext. Now what we need to do is we need to consider the first character of the key. The first character of the key over here is D. Now we know that D stands for numeric value 3. Yes or no? And this W stands for something. What will be W? I guess 23 or something. 22. Okay. Fine. Is it clear? Okay. Next, what happens is we need to add them up. Right. So it will be something like 22 plus 3 mod 26. And the answer that we will get will be 25. Now 25 is obviously Z. So it will be Z. Fine. We got the answer over here. Now can anyone tell me what is this 3? You will get your answer that I had just now asked before starting this example. What is the significance of this 3? The key. Basically, what is the key? How is it going to be used? Can anyone let me know? What is the significance of this shift over here? First of all, let me ask you, you got this, right? I'm simply following the formula. Plain text plus key mod 26. Fine. Now tell me, what is the significance of this key you can see over here? Very simple question I'm asking. If you see the next example, next character, it will be 4, right? And E is A, B, C, D, E. So I guess E will be 4. E will be 4. Both are same only. So it will be 4 plus 4, 8, mod 26. So we'll get 8. Right? What is 8? 8 stands for I. So in the same fashion, you have to keep on continuing this example until we get to the end of the key as well as plain text. Now, again, going back to my question, what is the significance of that key? As you see over here, with every step, the key might change. But in case of Caesar cipher, what happened is, it has to be same throughout the entire plain text. Am I making any sense? For example, if I select a key of size 3 or a key of size 4, I have to encrypt the entire plain text with the same key. Yes or no? I can't change the key in between. If I agree upon the key size, it remains same throughout. But in this case, the key size keeps on changing, as Harsh is also saying the same thing. Akhil is also saying the same thing. Same thing. So in this case, we can say that the first character of the plain text was encrypted with a Caesar cipher of shift 3. Similarly, we can say that the second character E of the plain text is encrypted with a Caesar cipher of shift 4. The third character is encrypted with a Caesar cipher of shift 2, and so on. Is it clear now? Am I making any sense? B division, A division, both? Kindly let me know your answers. This is a very important concept. Don't miss this. If you are having any queries, kindly ask me now. So basically, what happens is the characters in the key, how many characters are used, that is not a question over here. But each and every alphabet corresponds to a numerical value, right? So A to Z, everything will be given a number from 0 to 25, and each of these key characters are nothing but Caesar ciphers of individual shifts. So, for example, a Caesar cipher of shift 3 will be having a key D. Similarly, a Caesar cipher of shift 2 will be having a key C, and so on. Am I clear? That is why in the beginning only I told you that this particular Wigner cipher is made up of or thought of consisting of 26 different Caesar ciphers. In this case, although we have not used all the keys, we have used only a key of size 9 in which few of the characters are repeating. Am I clear? Is it fine now? Have you understood the entire concept of this Wigner cipher? I have just now told you about the encryption part. Fine. So now you have the table. You should get this table after doing all the encryption process. Now you have to repeat the entire process in the reverse order, and you will get back the plain text using this formula CI minus KI mod M mod 26. Again, try to do this. Now it will be 25 minus KI. KI is nothing but 3 over here. So it is nothing but subtraction. That's it. And you will get answer as 22. So you will again get back this plain text P. Fine. And then convert that back into the alphabets. Fine. So this is very simple. Although it looks difficult, but it is not so. It is a very intuitive kind of a model. So this is what we call as a Wigner cipher. And this is how we solve it using the method number 1. So any doubts with this? This question is a favorite question. It keeps on appearing in the examinations again and again. Wigner as well as Vernam cipher that we are going to learn next. Fine. Any doubts? You can ask me, or else I can move ahead. Kindly give an acknowledgement. Okay, fine. So let's start with method number 2. Now, as I had told you earlier, these problems can be solved using 2 methods. So let's have a look at the second method. In the second method, very rarely it is being asked, but still, if it is asked like this, they have to give a table in the exam. This table is what we call as a Wigner table. Okay, just have a look. Again, if you can visualize this as a Caesar cipher, it consists of 26 different Caesar ciphers. Yes or no? Can you see over here at this diagram? It will be very much clear. The first row is of shift 0. The second row is of shift 1. Third row is of shift 2, and so on. Yes or no? Just visualize this as 26 different Caesar ciphers. So it's the same thing, but written in a different fashion. You don't need any sort of multiplications, any sort of addition, subtraction. You can simply refer this table and get the answer. Fine. So I will just give an example and I will tell you how to encrypt or decrypt using this method. The encryption is very simple. What you need to do is, for example, there is a key given. Okay, let me see the values here. So this is your plain text, universal, and key is college. So what you need to do is, again, the size of the key should be less than the plain text. So we need to repeat it again and again. So what happens is, as you can see, the key is of size 7. And this is of size 9, I guess. Fine. So you have to repeat the last 2 characters. So I will be repeating this one, C and O. Fine. Is it clear? Okay. So now what we need to do is read the description over here. The first letter of the plain text is combined with the first letter of the key that we have already seen. Now what we need to do is the column of the plain text and the row of the key, wherever it intersects, that is your ciphertext. So for example, column of the plain text. What is our plain text? Plain text is universal, that is U. U is my first plain text character and C is my key character. So what I will do is I will check U in the plain text column over here. So it will be somewhere over here, right? And I will see the C column, C row, sorry, in the key character, in the key rows over here. And wherever it intersects, that is my ciphertext. So see it from this diagram, it intersects at W. So W will be my first ciphertext character. Is it clear? Yes or no? I guess this is simpler. You don't need any sort of calculations over here. The only thing is you have to look carefully at the diagram. If you make a single mistake, entire thing goes wrong. I'm repeating once again. This is very crucial. Don't end up doing mistakes. The first character of the plain text is checked in the columns, and the first character of the key is checked in the rows. So our first character of plain text was U, which is for universal, and the first character of the key was C, right? So we have to compare U and C. Similar to your playfest cipher, we are doing something like that only. So U and C has to be compared. U is the plain text, C is the key. Wherever they intersect, that will be my ciphertext. Am I clear? Kindly let me know so that I can move ahead. Is it fine? Okay. Okay, so based upon this logic, I will just show you the diagram, the table. Kindly complete the rest of the plain text. Universal and college. Okay, so kindly complete that and tell me your answers quickly. I'm giving you 2 to 3 minutes. It should be solved. It is very easy. You have to check each and every character of plain text over here and each and every character of key along the rows. Okay, fine. Complete your answers and let me know. This is just for practice. Okay, hurry up. Okay, so what should be the next character? Next ciphertext? Yes, B, correct. Because it will be an intersection of N and O. It is B. Okay, correct. Okay, I'm getting answers. So let's see the answer, complete answer over here. So kindly verify your answers. This is what I got. WBTGIXWCZ. Correct. This is the correct answer. So now kindly tell me who is facing issues with it. If any one of you is facing issues solving it, kindly let me know. I can repeat it if you want. If any one of you feels like there needs to be one revision of this, kindly let me know. I can revise it once again if you wish. It's very simple. Just have a look at the table, but don't end up making mistakes. Mistakes as in you have to check the plain text along the columns. Yeah, okay, Pratik. You have to check the plain text along the columns. So whatever is the plain text, the very first character of that plain text, you have to check it along the columns. I'm writing it over here. The plain text was universal, right? So it was something like this. And the key was college, COLLEGE. So we have to compare each and every character. So U and C will be compared. What happens is you have to check U along the columns and C along the rows. Wherever they intersect, that character is your ciphertext. Similarly, next is N and O. So check the N column and O row. And wherever they intersect, that is this B, that will be your plain text. Am I clear? You have to repeat in the same fashion. You can think of this as 26 Caesar ciphers working in random. Clear? Is it fine now? Okay, fine. So now let's talk about the decryption process. How to decrypt it. Now, whatever ciphertext you have got, that will be subjected to the key. The first character is W. Now, how to do it in the reverse order? The key will obviously remain same. How to do this? It is very simple. It is again very simple sort of a explanation. What you need to do is you have to keep the key constant, obviously, and in the C row, for example, the first key is going to be same, right? Key is C only. What you need to do is you have to now compare the ciphertext and the key. What you need to do is wherever in the C column, that is wherever in the column of that key, you find the ciphertext letter W, corresponding column will be your plain text. Am I clear? Am I making any sense? Let me repeat it. C is your key. In that C column, wherever you encounter W, sorry, in that key row, wherever you encounter W, that particular column will give you the plain text back. Am I making any sense? Similarly, let's check the next character, that is B. So the ciphertext character is B, but the key is O. So in the O row, wherever there is a B, we stop over there and check that column. That column is N. So you will get back N. Am I clear? Is it fine? Got it? Pratik, is it clear? Harsh, yeah, fine. So in the same fashion, just complete it and you will get back the answer. If you want, you simply write this down wherever you are writing in a notebook. The decryption process, if you wish. Because people make mistakes over here, let me tell you. What they do is, instead of the key row, they check the ciphertext row. And that is where they make the mistakes. It is very simple. जैसे आप यहाँ तक पहुंचे हो वैसे ही उल्टा जाना है. The same fashion. Whichever path you have used to achieve the ciphertext, you have to use the same path in the reverse order. That's it. Fine. Now is it clear? Okay, Deep, let me repeat it once again. What happens is, let's check this plain text and ciphertext. You got this ciphertext, right? Now what you need to do is consider the first ciphertext W and the key C. Now we know that the key row is present over here. That is the C row. So in C ka row, whenever there you encounter a W, check the corresponding column. And whatever is the header of that column, that is your plain text. Am I clear? Is it clear, Deep? Okay, fine. Fine. So that is all about this cipher, which is what we call as the Wigner cipher. Fine. Any doubts with this? So depending upon how the question is asked in the exam, you can do the same thing. Now, it's a small question for you. Add this as your question number 3 in your assignment. Solve this question. This one. Deceptive, 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 and we are discovered. Save yourself using the second method. Am I clear? You have to solve this question. I will add this in your assignment number 1 as question number 3. So solve this question using method number 2 and verify your answers. Fine. Clear? So let's jump to the strengths and weaknesses of this Wigner cipher. Now, can anyone tell me what are the strengths and weaknesses of this cipher and how to do cryptanalysis? Yes, Harsh, you have to use the keys 3 times because the key size is less, right? You have to equate both the keys. Yes, Dhruv, we can use 2 different keys for more security, correct? So let's talk about those things only, how to improve the strength and how to discuss about the weaknesses of this Wigner cipher. What could be the strength and weaknesses of this? Basically, Wigner cipher is nothing but an application of Caesar cipher. Yes, Harsh. The second method also is based on the first key only. The same plain text, same key you have to use and verify your answers whether they are giving the same answer or not. Okay. So as I was saying, the Vignesh cipher is based on Caesar cipher only, the application of Caesar cipher only. So whatever weaknesses the Caesar cipher is having, the same will be reflected in Vignesh cipher also. Yes or no? What were those drawbacks? Caesar cipher. Drawbacks of Caesar cipher. I had discussed about this diagram if you remember. I had discussed about this graph. I had discussed this at the time of Playfair also. I had discussed this at the time of Caesar cipher also. This is what we call as the relative frequency of letters in the English text. I'm giving you a very, what you can say, intuitive sort of a method by which the attackers actually try to attack your text, ciphertext. The very first thing the attackers do while cryptanalysis is they check whether the cipher being used is a mono-alphabetic cipher or a polyalphabetic cipher. Am I making any sense? Before directly attacking a ciphertext, they have to make sure whether it is an encryption using a monoalphabetic cipher or a polyalphabetic cipher. Based upon that, they can use their own tools for cracking that cipher. So in this case, in this diagram, as you can see, let me zoom it further. The character E is considered to be having the maximum occurrence. Now, this research has been done on multiple pages, multiple paragraphs, and based upon that, they have come to this conclusion. This might be more or less equal. Instead of 12%, it might be somewhere around 13, 14%, 11%, 10%, but not more than that. As you can see, the gap between the first character and the second character is huge, 12% and 9%. That is, the 3% gap is a lot of gap. Fine. So what we can say is, according to the research that was conducted, it was found that character E is considered to be occurring most of the times in a particular paragraph of text, English text. After that, character T was found to be occurring more. So what happens is the attacker has to simply look at the ciphertext. For example, right now, whatever ciphertext you got, somewhere around this, whatever ciphertext you got, you have to check the occurrence of each of the characters and then take the percentage. Now, it is quite possible that your ciphertext is very small and it will not adhere to this particular statistics. So this particular method will apply over there where the ciphertext is relatively large and you can try to find out patterns in it. Am I making sense? So what exactly happens is the attacker will first of all try to count the occurrence of each and every ciphertext character and then uh, calculate the percentage occurrence of that particular character in that ciphertext. And whichever character is having the highest occurrence in that ciphertext, for example, let me give you an example. It was found that, for example, the character G is having the highest occurrence, right? So what the attacker will do is the attacker will assume that this character G is basically character E because E is also having highest character in the relative frequency distribution chart, and he will assume that the G is nothing but character E. So now what he will try to do is, what is the difference between E and G? It is E, F, and G. So +2 might be the shift. Am I clear? This is just a technique I'm discussing. This is how the attackers, first of all, try to break the cipher. So they might think that there might be a difference of +2, or it might be a monoalphabetic cipher with a shift of 2. Am I clear? Am I making any sense? What the attacker will now try to do is he will simply try to subtract the ciphertext or shift the ciphertext back by 2 positions. And if after doing that, he comes with some meaningful text, that he will assume that this particular ciphertext is broken with a key of size 2. Am I clear? Yes or no? Kindly let me know if you got this entire explanation, the simulation. So basically, what happens is if the plain text is encrypted using any monoalphabetic substitution cipher, it more or less will satisfy this particular chart you are looking at. The highest number of the characters which are repeated n number of times, higher number of times, might be pointing to character E, because in English language, according to this research, it was found out that E repeats more number of times. So the character which is repeating in the ciphertext more number of times can be thought of as character E. Next step is check the difference between the character you are having and the character E. In my case, in my example, I found it to be +2. So kindly shift back by 2 positions and try to form a meaningful sentence. If you find a meaningful sentence, then it is very clear that the character had been encrypted using a monoalphabetic shift cipher of shift 2. So this is the very first way in which cryptanalysis is done. If at all the attacker finds that there is no usage of monoalphabetic cipher and the character percentages are very close to each other, the frequency distribution are very close to each other, then this method will not work. Then the attacker will basically try to find out whether it is a polyalphabetic cipher or not. Am I clear? Entire this thing only have been written over here. You can go through it. I will share the notes. Fine. So what if a monoalphabetic cipher is not used? What if a polyalphabetic cipher such as Wigner cipher is used? Then how does the attacker uh, crack that particular cipher? That is what we are going to learn over here. Just have a look at the same diagram, same example again. I will just repeat this. A Wigner cipher. What happens in case of Wigner cipher? Just take an example. At some point of time, you will see that there is some sort of a pattern. Coincidentally, in this example, there is a clear-cut pattern. Yes or no? As you can see, these terms RED, RED are repeating, and we are getting ciphertext as VTW, VTW. What the attacker does is, first of all, he will try to find out some patterns. In this case, we are clearly getting some patterns. What is the next step? The next step is to check the difference between these patterns, the amount of shifts. For example, between this V and this V, there is a difference of 9 characters if you count. Yes or no? Kindly let me know. There is a difference of 9 characters between the first V and the second V. Why we are doing this? Because we are trying to find out some patterns. The very first step is trying to find the length of the key. That is very important. Correct. Correct, Jyoti. The question in concern is we need to find the length of the key, because once we know the length of the key, we can come to a conclusion that after the ninth character, the key starts repeating. Yes or no? That is the main drawback or the weakness of this Wigner cipher. Earlier, it was not thought of with such precision or such accuracy, but later on, with the advent of fast computers, computing power became faster with cheaper hardware. It became very easy to crack this software, crack this algorithm, right? So, what is the first goal? The first goal is try to find out the length of the key. This example is very simple. You will not find such examples in real life. You have to focus a lot on the statistical patterns. I will show you towards the later section. So first of all, we have to find the length of the key. Once you get the length of the key, you will come to a conclusion that after the ninth position or the length of the key, the characters start repeating. Am I clear? Fine. So now we came to know that the length of the key is 9. So after every ninth interval, the keys start repeating. Now what we should do? Any idea? Now we can simply break those characters into nine groups, into groups of 9, basically. And then what we can do is, now we have got access to the ciphertext. Now we have got access to ciphertext, and now we know that the length of the key is 9. Yes or no? Now we will revert back to the first method. First method, as in we are getting Z, I, C, V, T, W, and O. So these are the first 9 characters. Whatever be the first 9 characters in the block, we divide them and then try to find out whether they release any sort of patterns referring to this diagram. Am I clear? Let me repeat it once again. Now we have got the length of the key as 9. So we will divide the entire ciphertext into blocks of 9 characters. And for those 9 characters, we will again try to compare that with this particular graph. That is, we are basically dividing the entire polyalphabetic cipher again back to a monoalphabetic cipher. Kindly read this definition over here. An analyst looking at only the cipher text would detect the repeated sequences VTW at a displacement of 9 and make the assumption that the keyword is either 3 or 9 characters in length. It can be even 3, right? The key can repeat thrice. So what happens is, by looking into the common factors of displacement, the analyst should be able to make a good guess of the keyword length. Now we have got the keyword length. What we need to do is, if the keyword length is M, okay, it consists of M monoalphabetic substitution ciphers. Am I clear? Obviously, because if you have got the length of the key as M, it will be considered as M Wigner ciphers. That we have already seen. Fine. So this is very important over here. For example, with the keyword deceptive, the letters in position 1, 10, and 19 are all encrypted with the same monoalphabetic cipher. Highlight this point. Yes or no? Kindly let me know. Because that word deceptive is repeating thrice, and whenever there is the first character, the ninth character, and the 17th character, all of them, sorry, first, 10th, and 19th character, all are encrypted using the same monoalphabetic cipher. Why? Because the shift is constant. Am I clear? Kindly let me know. I'm repeating it again in a very small sort of a fashion. What we are trying to do is, if we come to a conclusion that a Wigner cipher is used, we break that Wigner cipher into the length of the key. First of all, find the length of the key and then convert that ciphertext into chunks of those length. For example, if the length is 9, we divide that ciphertext into groups of 9. Now we know that if the length is 9, after every ninth interval, the key is going to be same. So we are basically now dealing with 9 monoalphabetic ciphers. The only thing is, if we are sure that it is a monoalphabetic cipher, then the cryptanalysis part becomes really easy. As we have already seen, we simply compare that particular character with this graph and try to find out the character which repeats the maximum number of times. Compare that with the character E, shift it accordingly, and try to break the code. Am I clear? This is how cryptanalysts actually work. It is not that simple as explained over here. It will take a lot of time. But if you are experienced enough, if you have a good, uh, uh, if you have a high configuration computer, then it will be really easy to crack these ciphers. Am I clear? This is how the cryptanalysts actually used to break the code before the invention of high computing performance computers. Fine. Am I clear with this? Kindly let me know. Actually, it doesn't happen. You must have seen in movies. Yeah, as Jyoti is saying, it doesn't happen like that. Hacking is not that easy. Okay, as it's shown in the movies, a person sits in front of the computer, does some 2, 3 punch in the keyboard. It doesn't happen. Okay, so it is really difficult. You have to have a lot of patience because nowadays people think that hacking is very simple. You just have to have a good computer. That's it. Okay, so a lot of efforts and a lot of what you can say patience is required for that. Fine. So this was all about Wigner cipher. I still have time, so I will just start with Vernam cipher. Don't I don't think it will be completed. So let's start with it at least. Let's see how is it different from the existing ciphers. So a Vernam cipher, as you can see, this is the patent of that Vernam cipher. Actual patent which was submitted in 1919 by this researcher Gilbert Vernam. Okay, as you can see, at that time software was not available, so they used to have a hardware implementation of that cipher. So you can see at this diagram and just imagine how difficult it was. Even I can't make things out of it. What exactly is the cipher? What exactly is the key? Because it is really that difficult. They used to have hardware tapes. Uh, Obviously, you have seen in Turing machines, right? Turing machines were actually existing in hardware. So the same thing happens over here, a multi-tape Turing machine sort of a thing. They used to have computers at that time in the form of Turing machines. That is why we say that Turing machines are the were the are the basic fundamentals of modern computers, right? Based upon that, the modern computers were designed. So same thing applies over here. Just have a look at this diagram. This patent was applied in 1919, and you will learn in your final year about what are patents, intellectual property in the subject advanced system security and digital forensics. You will come to know that patents exist for 20 years. After 20 years, the patents are released in the common domain and people can have access to the diagram. Otherwise, we wouldn't have access to this diagram because this patent was valid from 1919 to 20 years down the line. After that, it was released in the public, and then people were, yeah, it's very complicated, Pratik. And then people were in a position to understand the patent and make their own derivations out of it, right? So this is how that particular Vernam cipher looked like, although the working is very simple. Nowadays, now you can say that it's very simple because we have access to softwares. At that point of time, we didn't have access to software, so people had to type in, punch in holes in the papers to indicate zeros or ones, whatever it was, right? So just have a look at this diagram. It will make things clear. I will focus upon this in the next lecture in detail. Just have a look what it exactly is. The concept is like this. Instead of characters, what this cipher did was it used binary equivalent. Just have a look at this diagram. So if I am saying ABC as the plain text, it first of all had to be converted to binary equivalent. Now the question arises, how will you convert an alphabet to binary? Any suggestions, any answers? There are various ways to do this, but I would like to know your answer. Correct. One of the methods is ASCII. ASCII values for that. For example, if I say hello, I have to first of all convert that hello, that is each and every individual character, that is HELLO, into the ASCII equivalent. ASCII will basically give me the decimal value, convert that decimal value into a binary value. Is it clear? That is what is shown over here. I have taken an example also. The steps are mentioned. Convert the plain text to an ASCII, take binary equivalent of that, take the key can be in any binary format, and XOR them. So a simple example I have taken, hi, HI followed by an exclamation mark. So first of all, H is converted to its ASCII equivalent 72, I is converted to 105, exclamation mark is again converted to 33. And then we get the binary equivalent of this plain text. Is it clear? So depending upon the length of this plain text, you need that much amount of key. So it has to be equal because this time we are XORing. And for XORing, it has to be exactly the same length. Fine. So once we do this, what we do is we simply pass the plain text, we simply pass the key over here, and the resultant will be your ciphertext. Isn't it simple? Now, if we think of from a software point of view, we can design a program for this within few minutes, right? But that time software was not available, so it had to be done manually on sheets of paper, punching holes wherever there was zero and keeping it simple wherever there were ones. This is just an example. So this is how the things work in this particular cipher, which is called as Vernam cipher, based upon the researcher's name, Gilbert Vernam. Fine. But obviously, it has its drawbacks. We'll discuss all of that in detail in the next lecture. Uh, I will quickly give an introduction of this application, which is called as one-time pad. Now, in the exam, you might be asked questions interchangeably. They can even ask what is one-time pad. They can even ask what is Vernam cipher. Okay, so both the things are 99% same. One-time pad can be thought of as an application of the Vernam cipher. Vernam cipher came into existence, but there were few drawbacks of this. So to avoid that, this one-time pad came into existence. Fine. We'll learn about that much in the next lecture. So I guess this is more than enough for today. So instead of bombarding topics again and again, so let's stop this lecture here. You have 2-3 days off. Kindly practice all of this, whatever we have done. I will upload the lectures today. The 3 lectures, I will upload all of them today. So kindly practice that in your weekend. I'm going to add the third question in the assignment. Solve that verify your answers, and upload by Monday. I've given time till Monday. Okay. So if you're having any doubts, you can ask me. So we can close the session over here. Thank you.